All right, pleased to be with you on a Thursday afternoon, brand new episode of the On Friar podcast. He is Derek Togerson. I am Darnay Tripp. Derek Togerson, who always posts, no matter how he's feeling, even if he's not 100%, he's here, he shows up, gets the job done. How are you, Derek?
We're good. We're good. Keep telling myself that.
That's exactly. Mentally, get in the right frame of mind. Toughing it out for the next 45 to an hour with one of our great friends, John Conniff of Mad Friar. It's been a little while since we caught up with John. And
This is a good time of year to do that too, because we get kind of calm before the storm. Who might we be surprised with at spring training? Plus, he can talk, and I don't have to.
and he can kind of get our minds kind of situated, who we should be looking out for once spring training rolls around, and get us caught up on all the folks of interest down on the farm. So looking forward to chatting with John as always. Appreciate OG's, a sponsor of the On Friar podcast. Thanks to OG's and all they do for On Friar and the NBC7 Sports Wrap team. If you need a place to catch, let's see, conference championship weekend in the NFL, college hoops, NBA, NHL, whatever your sport of choice is, head to OG's. A bunch of TVs, a bunch of locations around San Diego County. Great food, awesome beer list, and just a good place to hang. So appreciate all OG's and all they do for On Friar. Without further ado, the walk-up music. It is the On Friar podcast brought to you by NBC7. He is Derek Togerson. I am Darnay Tripp, and excited to have one of our favorite guests back. There he is, John Conniff, front and center. Look at that beard, looking glorious.
It's coming.
How are you, John?
Good. I'm glad you guys must be searching for some content to call me up right now with the Padres minor league system where it is. So thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to be on with you guys.
Well, we're wondering why. You could tell us why the Padres didn't have enough to give the Nationals what the Rangers gave the Nationals from Mackenzie Gore.
Derek,
or the Brewers.
Derek, you know that answer as well as I do. I don't care how sick you are. The Padres don't have anything close to that. And, as even the Mets trade, which you saw two top 100 prospects go for Peralta. I mean, I'm always curious when I read national guys say the Padres are in on the Peralta trade. I mean, I kind of want to know what being in means. Does that mean AJ called him up?
To call the Brewers.
Yeah.
Hey, what do you want? Okay, cool. Yeah. Have a nice offseason.
Pretty much. Yeah. You don't have what we need. Do you guys want to trade Jackson Merrill for him? No. Thank you. That'd be probably about it. But yeah, Mackenzie Gore will be a nice pickup for the Rangers. I always liked Mackenzie when he was in the system.
Do you feel any tug of the heartstrings when one of your old friends that you spent so much time talking about and covering and getting to know gets moved around at the major league level, or proud of him when you see him become an all-star like he did last year?
Well, man, you can give like a couple answers on that. Is when you talk to the Padres, they'll be the first to tell you that I think since AJ Preller took over, of the players they've drafted or signed at the second most in the big leagues. I'm not sure if that's a correct stat. I haven't verified that, but I'll go with them right now on that. As far as, you wish they would come up. But the thing is, all of us grew up in San Diego, and we're all Padres fans. And as I got some grief from my friends, I'd like to kind of see them win a World Series once before I depart from this earth. So, they're going to have to trade some of these guys to get people. And I think about a couple months ago, God, when I wrote my top 30, they got Ben Davies and David Jays has come out, and Clark Fahrenholtz is coming out next week. As the Padres got a really kind of small window, and you guys have kind of talked about this. They have about 2 years, and they kind of really got to try to win, because after that, it's a lot of bad contracts for some older players. So if they're going to make a run, and I think they could, but it's going to have to be this year or the next, because it's not going to be there for about 4 or 5 years, I think.
As you're saying that, I'm wondering, like, are we already in those years with the bad contracts?
It depends how much an optimist you are. Like some of the more negative elements in the Mad Friars family will say they have this year. The more optimistic ones will go 3. I think it's about 2 years. You know, you
And
get those big contracts with Manny Machado, which you guys have said, Xander Bogaerts. You know, there's not a lot of teams that are going to have 40-year-old infielders running around, and that's kind of what they have.
With Nick
Now, is that
Castellanos playing
because
first
of
base.
those guys will be so cost prohibitive that they can't supplement around them enough? Because I mean, in 2 years, Cash Mayfield is up, and Cruz Schoolcraft is up, and we can make this young bumper crop of young starting pitchers. They come up, and you kind of have these 3 major contract guys, and then all this other cool young talent shows up. Is it those guys aren't going to develop? Is it they're going to be so hamstrung by aging, terrible players in the infield they can't get rid of, that they'll be not talented enough to really compete in the next couple of years? Like, where is the fatal flaw?
The fatal flaw was signing a lot of the extensions that were passed out, I think, in 2023, right before, everyone felt really good about that. But, you're going to be paying Manny Machado $39 million with a no-trade contract between ages 37 to 40. You're going to be paying Xander Bogaerts $25 million a year, even with the rate going down. That amount of money. Jake Cronenworth's contract's not that bad, but it's still probably more than most teams, would want to take on. So, I think in this year and next, they have a chance. Those are still productive players, but everyone gets old, and, I don't think you can't move those contracts. As, Cruz Schoolcraft and Cash Mayfield coming up, yeah, if they hang on to them a lot. But, if the Padres are in a chance to win and it's midseason, I mean, I would not bet a lot on those guys remaining in San Diego, because they're going to need somebody.
AJ Preller is going to hear John Conniff's voice in the back of his mind. I want my team to win a World Series at some point while I'm still alive. So, okay, whatever it takes to give us a World Series roster. I think that was kind of like even Leo DeVries. We thought, okay, maybe he would be the one. But I think the lesson at the deadline that, we probably learned for the 8th or 9th time is, like, if AJ Preller sees an opportunity to win now and be better now, he's going to go for that, even if it's a player like Leo DeVries. And so, as we're talking about some of these prospects, and that's one of the things that I wonder, and there's so much kind of like what's going to happen with this team, ownership, AJ Preller. I'd be curious kind of your viewpoint on all this, because it feels like we could be on like the precipice of like a major shift, whether it be with ownership, potentially with AJ Preller, where maybe there is a change in perspective and approach as it relates to some of these young guys, in terms of keeping a hold of them, having some continuity, and some young guys on more, reasonable, affordable contracts.
Well, they're going to have to do that. They will have to do that coming up. But, as far as like a year or 2 right now, what we're looking at is they already have a lot of money invested in the team. And these are the best. I think a lot of the people in San Diego media, like my friends on Ben and Woods, make a point that you can't really waste Manny Machado's prime years, or even when, Xander Bogaerts is, at least a league average shortstop, and, slightly above that, maybe if can hit a little bit more this year. You kind of have to go for it this 2 years, because in about 3 years, you're not going to have a choice. You are going to have to hang on to those players, because you are going to need them to supplement. Would the ownership rather have a lot of these younger players? Of course, because they're vastly cheaper, and they would like to hang on to them if they could. But you bring up Leo DeVries, and that was let's say not a popular move among most of the guys I talked to at the affiliates, who were not really happy about that. But when you look at it in the big picture, getting someone like Mason Miller with his contract, who's the best closer in baseball, and you guys talked about that many times. That was the number one guy that was asked about in any trade that I read about, at least. I don't know that for a fact, but when I read about that, because his contract is the amount of value he gives what he's being paid is tremendous, and that's a guy that's going to have tremendous value anytime they look to move him or if they did go to trade him. But I think the title of this is going to be on Luis Campusano, so we can chat about him a little bit if you'd like to.
Campy, our new first base platooner.
I think I've listened. I think I told you, I texted you guys. I listened to a couple of the shows that you had in the past. I always listen in. It's great on the elliptical in the mornings. Is that I think there's a little bit too much negativity about Campusano, and a lot of it people just kind of have a fallback position like, oh, well, anybody can hit in El Paso, and all the numbers there you can't really believe. Campy was the only one who posted 1,000 OPS in the PCL last year, qualified plate appearances. I mean, he was dominant. I mean, you can look at the stats. He hit 330. He had, I think I have right in front of me. He had a 441 OPS, a 595 slugging, hit 25 home runs. And the way in which Pete Zamora, who's a AAA manager, used him, I think is the perfect way which San Diego could. He caught about 2 or 3 times a week. He DH'd about twice a week. He played first base, which was his natural position in high school. He was converted to a catcher in his junior year. And, this is a big right-handed bat. He's going to make about $900,000 a year. And, I mean, there's nothing for him to do in AAA. He's proven he can hit there. And he really needs a realistic chance, and he needs a manager which, can figure out a way to get along with him, use him, whatever you guys want to fill in. He's a talented player, and they need to get him on the field, in my opinion.
So where's the disconnect for Campy then? Because we hear the dreaded 4A player thrown at him.
Yeah.
I've done it myself where he's too good for AAA. For some reason, it just doesn't translate to the major leagues. And there's a long list of guys throughout Major League Baseball history that have fallen into that category. So he's certainly not alone if he does end up there. What is it then? Is it the handling more elite stuff, more consistent stuff, pressing too much, trying to prove he belongs in the major leagues? Is it the skill set just doesn't translate? What is it that changes so much that takes him from a 300 hitter with a 900 OPS in El Paso to a guy who's hitting a $134 with a 500 OPS in the major leagues?
Well, I think you guys would both be the first to say that I don't think it's making an excuse, but there's a reason. I believe when he got called up one time, he sat on the bench 4 straight games, and then he got to go in as a DH. So that probably is not the best way to put him up there. As far as a 4A player, which is, a criticism I've heard a lot is, all of Campy's problems, from what I can understand and what I've been told, has to do with, just kind of getting along with the manager, both Bob Melvin and Mike Schultz, and some misconceptions of the pitchers. I got a chance to talk to Pete Zamora, who was a few times, who was a manager there. And more importantly, he's been a pitching coach at a couple stops in the organization. He was there with Campy when he was in Lake Elsinore. And he pointed out that the pitchers he was with loved throwing to Campy because, he had guys like Mackenzie Gores, he put it, and Luis Patino, who had really power sliders, and Campy never failed to call for that. Runner on third in a tight game, and he would get in front of the ball. He mentioned something like which is a really kind of interesting and controversial thing in the minor leagues about catching on 2 legs as opposed to putting one knee down and moving around. He's not great at that, but when he's on 2, his natural way, he gets in front of him. None of the pitchers that I talked to on or off the record, and they would say so, had any problems with him. And I would say one other thing about Pete is if you meet Pete Zamora, Pete looks like what you would like people on the East Coast think a Californian looks like. He's real tall.
I've talked to Pete a couple times.
Hats. He talks really slow, has a California accent like we do. And then but Pete's not a guy to screw with. I mean, if you're not out there giving it your all, and especially being a good teammate, you're not only not going to be, playing, you're not going to probably be on the team. And if Campy had some problems, he didn't come across with Pete. And I think Pete's pretty honest. And he said he liked having him back there. He said he's always there willing to work, willing to put in the game plan. and he knows what he has to do. And he's weird in the sense he doesn't like doing interviews. His family subscribes to Mad Friars. I go there and I got to chat with him. We talked about his third French bulldog that they have that joined Cookie and Pablo. And he's had some, I think, well-documented mental issues, I think, with dealing with depression and anxiety. And I think he's kind of made a lot of strides. And, you guys probably know this as well as I do. When you're dealing with a professional team, your job as a manager is to put the most talented guys on the field. It's not high school where someone deserves that. It gives you the best chance to win. And I think Campusano, especially with where the Padres are on their payroll and what he's accomplished last year, it would really behoove them to give him every opportunity to catch a couple games a week, play some DH, and go in at first base, because that's exactly what the team needs. Now, my dogs are acknowledging my wife's home.
How long does he get? How long of a leash here are we talking? Because, Freddie Fermin obviously is the number one guy.
Yeah,
and
he is.
And if he has to have consistent at-bats, then you're going to give him how many starts at any insert position here? How many starts is he getting a week until you realize he's going to hit or he's not going to hit? Because the bat is going to put him in the lineup, and then you find a place for whatever glove he has. He has to hit.
Well, I think a couple years ago I talked to Carlos Collazo of Baseball America, and he made the good point that a lot of teams, big league teams, see themselves as needing two catchers. The days of some guy catching 150 games isn't going to happen. So, yes, Freddie Fermin is a starter, but Freddie's not going to catch 6 games a week. And Luis can catch 2. They should have an open DH. He should get at bats there, and he shouldn't be able to hit against lefties at first base when they give Gavin Sheets a break. So, to me, unless he has an absolute horrible April, I would make sure he gets consistent playing time for the first month and see where you're at.
So
but
20 at-bats a week for a month?
I would start him. I think you should get at least 1 or 2 times, twice behind the dish and twice at least at DH and maybe once at first base. That's what they had him doing in El Paso. Just tell him like you're a guy. You're going to get playing time at one of those 3 spots. We need you to hit and see what happens.
And why would he not get a ton of work during the spring?
Yeah, he'll get a ton of work. Look, Campy can catch. He's in great shape. You're talking about a guy who's 5'11", about 220, has the amount of body fat on him that Derek Torgerson has. Lean as hell. And, he might not be. I think the one negative on him is I think the one knee thing is kind of tough for him to move as well as he could side by side. But, he gets his nose in there, and he's not afraid to call the tough pitches. There's a lot of guys in the minors. A couple years ago, Estrella Ruiz was in San Antonio, and he stole third with 2 outs. And I remember after the game, I was asking Philip Wellman, who was the manager, I said, you got to help me understand, why would you have him steal? Because, he can reach home on a single really easily. And he said the reason you do that is because a lot of guys at this level, they got a guy on third. They're not calling a breaking pitch. They want a fastball. They do not want it in the report that you had a pass ball, let the run in, and our hitters know that. So that just eliminates a pitch. And, that's true. And Campy, to his credit, all the pitchers I talked to in El Paso had no problem throwing to him. And I hope he gets a shot.
And then, I think part of the conversation is like not putting too much on him, and part of that is kind of the receiving element, relationship with the pitching staff. How do you balance that versus like a potential shift to first base and giving him more opportunities there after a year that he had played 14 games at first base? Like, each comes with its own kind of challenges and pressure and all that.
Well, I think it's what we're talking about. You're not talking about having him be the everyday catcher. You're having Fermin be the everyday catcher.
Yeah.
Campy is a guy who's going to catch, once during the week and maybe the third game of the series. And then he's going to, DH. And then he's going to play first base maybe once. He's a decent first baseman. I saw him play first a couple times. I think that's different than telling him he's going to what he was before, where he's the starter. He's expected to, catch 5-6 games a week. Yeah, I'm a big fan of his. I don't think that's his best role. I think his best role is what Pete used him last year. And I think for the Padres, it kind of fits. That's really what they need. They need a solid backup catcher. They need a guy who can DH. They need a guy who can spell against tough lefties at first with Sheets.
I've always liked Campy. He's always been, for whatever his public perception may be, he's always been more than willing to sit and talk. And you're right, he's been really honest about the things that he struggled with.
Yes.
And there's a lot of respect in that. A lot of guys don't want to talk about or admit certain things. He'll tell you flat out where he thinks he messed up and where he thinks he's doing well. And I respect the heck out of him for that. And I again, like you, I want this to work because we've seen peak Luis Campusano is an all-star in the major leagues. It's the mystery is unlocking that at that level. And that's kind of what we've all been thinking, like, what does it take? And maybe he's caught Craig Stammen. Maybe that's a relationship that Craig is able to bring that guy back out of him.
Well, that would have been one of the questions I would have asked Craig Stammen in the managerial interviews. He knows him. How would you get the most out of Luis Campusano, what you just said? And that's something a manager on a major league level should be able to do. And, I think Campy, has, he's grown up a lot. Pete said the same thing because he was with Campy even before Lake Elsinore. I think he was with him when he first came over in the Arizona League, when he first got drafted. And Pete's talked a lot about how much he's improved and matured. And, Pete didn't have to do that. And, there's other managers he's had have not done that. So that's where I kind of think he's worth a shot. And I think it's two ways. One, I think he's overcome a lot. So I think I'm rooting for him just as a human being that way. Mm-hmm. And then, as far as a Padre fan, this is what they need. They need a right-handed bat who can do what he's doing. So I hope he gets a shot.
I think we've established that Mike Schiltz, an incredibly stubborn individual.
Yes.
And, Bob Melvin, experienced guy, played the position, probably at this stage in his career when he was with the Padres, had a pretty clear idea of what he was looking for at that position. Stammen feels like maybe the most kind of amenable when it comes to Luis Campusano, especially given the past relationship, like Derek said, a guy that has actually caught him, shared the clubhouse with him, and then Stammen just kind of being new to all this, being a big relationship guy. I think that's got to be part of the hope, is like maybe that will create the best environment to really give us an opportunity to see what we have in Luis Campusano as a major leaguer, because the past guys have not really provided that runway.
I think that's what kind of went into getting Stammen the job. I mean, when you start checking the boxes, what you want in a manager for the San Diego Padres, I think AJ Preller is as aware of anyone that he's got about a 1 or 2 year window. They need someone who understands what went right under Mike Schiltz and what did not, what went right under Bob Melvin, what did not, how everyone works in the organization, what is and is not in the minor leagues, guys you could bring up and who have a chance to help. And if they would have brought in someone maybe with more managerial experience, like Brandon Hyde from Baltimore, there would have been a huge learning curve for him to, as compared to someone like Craig Stammen. So to me, in my opinion, when I heard that he was picked as a manager, that's a guy who I think, checked a lot of boxes to help the Padres.
All right. All Campy radio is over now.
Okay.
As much as you want to dwell on this.
Although Chris did have one question. I think you kind of touched on this, John, but Chris is in the chat. I wanted to at least give you a chance to, quickly touch on this, hitting the Texas League versus his approach at Petco. And then we can turn the page on Campy. Sorry, Derek.
Campy never played in the Texas League. He went from Lake Elsinore, then the pandemic came, and then
Chris trying to think of the Pacific Coast League.
I think he's talking El Paso.
The Pacific Coast League. I don't think as much. I mean, the thing is, Campy, I think, hit. If you go to El Paso, there's a building past the left field wall. I think it's called the Scottish Rite Center, and Campy has hit that a few times. I mean, you've seen him. He uses one of the biggest bats on the team, strong as hell. I mean, when he hits the ball, it's going to go. I mean, just strong. So no, I don't think. I think when also you got to compare what he did in the PCL. You look at the numbers of guys who were also there and on his own team. No one came within who played over, I think, like 25 games within 100 points of his OPS on the Chihuahuas. So yes, we can move on from all Campy radio. We can talk about Cruz Schoolcraft or Cash Mayfield or something like that.
Yeah. So if there's a left-handed power pitcher out of high school in the draft, AJ Preller's taking him in the first round. That's just till the end of time, right? It's Mackenzie Gore, it's Ryan Weathers, it's Cruz Schoolcraft, it's Cash Mayfield. It's like that's just what he does.
AJ likes high school guys. I mean, I think the last college guy he took was Cal Quantrill, and that was even Cal was actually much more of kind of a high school pick because he had been injured. He had Tommy John. He hadn't pitched that many games at Stanford. Yeah, when you talk to AJ about that, he gets that starry-eyed look, goes, oh, sometimes the great ones are there, and he kind of falls in love. There's a lot to fall in love with Cruz Schoolcraft. I mean, as someone who's been doing this for a while, a 6'8" lefty that throws in the high 90s with a changeup, yeah, I kind of like that. Yeah, that's that'll work. I mean, he's someone to keep an eye on. His big thing is going to have to be his slider coming along, but they sent all three of these guys up to Lake Elsinore for really brief appearances last year. It's Cruz and the two catchers, Truett Madonna and Ty Harvey, who are young kids. They got most of the money in the draft, but he's going to be someone to watch this year up at Lake Elsinore if you make the drive up to 15.
I will say, though, the last guy, technically, AJ drafted in the first round as a college pitcher was Eric Lauer, who was their second first-round pick in 2016.
Yeah, he drafted him. That was the same draft where they took Hudson Potts, I remember.
Yep.
And
so Quantrill went 7th, and then Lauer went 20. What?
Yeah, the first draft, I can't remember. They took a high school pitcher out of Florida with the second round pick because they lost the first one to James Shields. I'll have to look up that guy. I haven't talked to him about him in a while. He never made it out of A-ball. But yeah, AJ, they've done a better job, I think, in drafting. They've kind of refined how they are. They weren't bad. They never were bad, but they've just gotten better. I think they have a really impressive staff, and God knows they have enough scouts.
If we'd ever spoken to you at any point in the last 2-3 years, this type of episode, we would not have gotten 28 minutes in and spoken about another catcher before getting to Ethan Salas. And I don't know what it says about Ethan Salas and the last year and our feelings and our hopes for Ethan Salas that we're halfway through this episode and we're just now bringing him up. But can you give us some idea of where he's at and what 2026 could look for him, and some hope that, he can develop into the guy that, had us all very excited when we were talking to you in the past?
Well, there's a huge split in the Mad Friars family about where we see Ethan. I had him ranked number 4. David J, Ben Davey, and I'll give it away. Clark's going to all have him as the number 1 guy. The problem I have with Ethan Salas is, I came on early with just Darnay was here, that I liked him a lot. And the thing I liked about Ethan so much offensively was he had a really good idea of what pitch he wanted to hit. And he would let pitcher's strikes go. And I thought that was just amazing for someone who was 16 years old when I saw him. He put up an incredible month at Lake Elsinore where he hit 360. But every other month, and including that last year, the year before, because he was out with a back injury, he's been jumping on pitches real early and the numbers have not been good. And when you talk to people like you guys who cover the San Diego Padres and what you consider value is what someone's able to do on a consistent basis to help the team win 90 or more games, to get into the playoffs, and eventually win a World Series, the numbers matter. You take those numbers away from that one big month that Ethan had, he's hit about 210 with a sub 300 on base and a sub 4 slugging percentage. His defensive skills have increased. He is very good. He can easily handle AA. My big worry is I would hope that Padres would say they're going to put him back in high A in Fort Wayne this year because of all the rust. He only played 10 games last year, and let him get his feet situated, because I can't think of anyone in recent years who hasn't hit in A ball, where you got to deal with a fastball, and usually a guy has either a slider or a changeup, as a secondary pitch, compared to going to Double A, where guys can pitch in the big leagues in Double A. It's just a question of how consistent they are. And that's a lot for a guy to deal with at, I think, probably the toughest position. So if Ethan starts the year in San Antonio and he somehow hits about 260 or 270 with like a 320 on base and limited power, I will be happy as anything. But the numbers don't really indicate that's what's going to happen, in my opinion.
Yeah, but you still got to dream on him. He's yeah. I mean, you have to, because he's also been, the power is always the last thing to come. We always know that. We always hear that. And right now he should be a sophomore in college.
Okay, so, I got a question for Derek. And here's for Derek. And I think I agree. I want to dream on him too. I'm a Padres fan. You would not promote someone who had about 210 in Fort Wayne at 18. And all the stuff about he's a young age, should be a high school senior. I agree with you on that completely. But you would probably say, look, we want to have both the offense and the defense come up together. Right now, the offense just a little behind. Doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. But we need to make sure you are very comfortable that you know what pitches you can and can't hit. You would not – I pretty much would bet you would not promote him just because you think it's the right thing to do because his performance wasn't there.
No, you leave him there until the bat starts to come around, because he's got. I mean, how many at bats does he even have? Like it's if obviously defensively he could probably catch in the major leagues right now. I mean, Mike Schild said that to me at spring training last year. He could catch in the major leagues right now as an 18-year-old. He just can't hit in the major leagues. Yeah, so
he can't hit in Double A. He can't hit right now. He can't hit in high A.
So
that's a big problem.
You have to kind of let the defense sit there and marinate while you're waiting for the offense to come along. And that's because if you're not able to handle it at high A, you're not going to handle it at Double A. But if you spend another year in high A and figure it out, or something clicks, you can then have some success at Double A and moving forward. But if you never have a chance to figure it out, you're not going to suddenly click one day at Triple A and go, oh, I'm a hitter now.
No, especially in the Texas League. On top of that, the league he's playing in is a very pitcher-friendly league. The stadium he's trying to hit in San Antonio is probably one of the toughest places to hit in the minor leagues. The wind comes in, from left field going to right in San Antonio, and that is a brutal place to hit. So I would like to see him in Fort Wayne. I think all the stuff that Derek's dreaming on has a better possibility of happening if he just gets a chance to put together 2 or 3 good offensive months in high A, then bring him up to Double A to finish off the year. I mean, he still would be 21. I mean, that's fine. But I think right now, if they have him start the year Double A and he's hitting under 190 on June 1st, then what do you do?
Put him back down in high A. No, you know what you do? You know what you do then, John? You promote him, because everybody hits in the Pacific Coast League.
Not like that. The thing is about the Pacific Coast League, people do hit there, but the one thing is most of the pitchers there, they probably don't have the giant fastball, but they got a serviceable fastball. They can place it where they want, and they got some pretty good secondary pitches. So sometimes people have trouble hitting up there because if they can't hit spin, you're going to have a really tough time in the AAA.
This in the chat again, and this is a topic I wanted to hit on. What does Tirso Ornelas need to do to get another call up? And
I'll handle that one.
Okay,
he's not. No, there's from what I saw from his big league call up, his bat's far too slow. He's not nearly athletic enough. He can't hit at the big league level. It's never going to happen. Can we let go of the Tirso Ornelas thing, please?
Well, he's a great story. He's from Tijuana. Mm-hmm. He's a very nice guy to chat with. He's huge. He's about 6'4.5", maybe 240. He's barely above a league average hitter in El Paso. and he
His
primarily
hands, bat speed, they're not there.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, he pretty much is limited to left field. He can play right. There's some debate about that. They've even run him around the center and first base, but I would hope I'm wrong because I like Tirso a lot. But if you're talking about bringing up a left fielder, that better be some guy who has the potential to hit 35 bombs in a year, and that's not Tirso.
Is that guy in the system?
What?
Is that guy in the system?
Yeah, I don't think I like Tirso a lot, but yeah, I don't really see that. The guy I like a lot, I think I'm probably a little bit on an island on this, is the kid that was from Darnay's neck of the woods, is I like Alex McCoy. He went to University of Maryland on the Eastern Shore, transferred to Hofstra for his junior year. The Padres signed him as an undrafted free agent. Now, the quick thing is, the natural question anybody should ask, if this guy's so good, why was he undrafted? Why wasn't he higher ranked? And it's interesting is when he went to a small Catholic school in Baltimore, he was mainly going to Maryland to play football, Maryland Eastern Shore. He was
He's 6'6" and 260.
Yeah, no, he's bigger than that. He was 6'4", 200 pounds in high school, and he grew 3 inches in college. And since he's been in San Diego, he's put on good weight, and he's a legit 6'7", 285.
Oh, have you seen a picture of him? He looks like Jimmy Graham, the tight end in his prime.
And he can run.
Like this dude, he got bowling balls inserted in his biceps. This dude's a massive human. No,
they let him run around center field some too. Now, there's been different guys. There's a much bigger gap between low A and high A now because of the removal of one of the short season leagues. And he's going to face some very improved pitching in high A. But, that you want to talk about dreaming on something? I want to dream on a guy who's 6'7", 285 who can play all 3 outfield positions.
Yep. There you go. Good. Well done, Darnay. Look at that. That is not a small man.
No. Nice guy. Only negative on him.
Anybody on your team to charge the mound, that's the dude you get.
Only negative on him, I don't think I've ever met anyone from the Eastern Shore of Maryland who doesn't like seafood and doesn't like crab. Won't eat it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Is he allergic?
No, he just doesn't like it. I mean, I think that might be the only thing that's not moving that he won't eat on a plate.
Okay, that's his character problem then, off the field thing that we're going to have to deal with.
But
we'll all work through it together.
Really good kid, fun to talk to, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do with the Tin Caps.
Yeah, okay, the guy I love is Braden Carpathios, who we just saw in the Arizona Fall League, who kind of came out of nowhere. I watched several of the AFL games. I'm like, those tools look like they might be real. What can you tell us about this kid?
He is another, when they say they're signing these guys as an undrafted free agent, I think one thing that might help people a little bit, since the Major League Draft went to 20 rounds, when you see how much money they have to spend, they kind of go over the cap for certain guys or the first 3 rounds. After that, pretty much in rounds 10 through 20, and the people usually in rounds 5 through 10 end up taking haircuts, they all get $150K. They can get that, or they can get less than that. So with Alex, for example, and I'll get to Braden in just a minute, as the Padres told him, did sign him for $150K, they'd give him the max. And so they said, if you got a better deal, take it. And most teams, even though how many tools McCoy had, he went to Hofstra, and I'm not sure you're really going to want to go into the money on the cap to spend for that. So he turned down a bunch of teams that offered to take him. Carpathios kind of had the same story. He went to a junior college out in northern
Hartford,
in where?
Hartford, I think.
Yeah, Haverford, I think.
Hartford Community College, in Maryland.
Yeah, and he's from Pennsylvania. Padres told him they wanted to take him. They'd give him 150. He took that. He can play all 3 outfield positions, probably better in the corners. He has a good arm, right fielder. He pitched a little bit in college. The big negative on him is he can sometimes get a little too patient, and they're really working on him to pull the ball. I'm not sure if he has enough to be an everyday corner outfielder, but he didn't look bad in San Antonio. And the Padres don't have a deep system, so he's going to get every opportunity to prove himself coming up in San Antonio this year.
So is it just after the Jackson Merrill success, it's every outfielder they can find from a small school in Maryland, they're just going to go grab that guy?
They might. I mean, I just saw who is it? The owner of the Ravens went to the same high school as Jackson. Went to Severna Park. He's from there too.
Scotty, yeah.
Yeah.
You just hired Jesse Minter.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
A guy that you'd mentioned in the past that I was excited about and didn't seem to have much of a 2025. Speaking of first base, Romeo Sanabria.
Yes.
Where's he
at? Romeo, for the first 2 months, Romeo was just dominating. And I enjoyed in our group chat on Mad Friars pointing out to all these guys why I was right and all of them were wrong. Then the last 3 months, I kind of had to be quiet. The big problem that happened with Romeo was a lot of times when they go to Double-A, the first thing guys do is challenge him with inside fastballs. If Romeo has an idea that an inside fastball is coming, he was going line to line drives. Wasn't in that many home runs, but a lot of balls in the gap. His problem came up for a lot of guys when they started landing the slider outside. He kind of couldn't adjust to that, where that was a strike, and then busting him in with a fastball. He had a really rough last 3 months. So I will be interested to see what type of adjustments he makes. He has great bat to ball skills, but one of the toughest things in professional baseball is how do you hit like a 96 mile per hour fastball and then at the same time hit something that's about 83 on the corners at the knees? And if all of us could only answer that and do it, we'd all be making a lot more money right now. We'd be talking at our homes in Coronado overlooking the ocean. Yeah.
We'd still be swinging bats at Petco Park.
Yes, of course.
This kid, Miguel Mendez.
Yeah.
He's got to become like the buzzword around the Padres as we look for who can be a starting pitcher. They obviously have some depth issues in the starting rotation at the big league level. And all of a sudden this guy shows up because they protected him in the Rule 5 draft.
They should.
So, which they should, because all of a sudden this year his fastball pops and he's touching 100 miles an hour. Is this a flash in the pan thing, or at the age of 22, is he somebody who finally came into his own and showed that he's a real legitimate potential starting pitcher at the major league level? And this is a guy that they are maybe banking on to, at some point this year, make starts at Petco Park.
I think that's a little quick. What came with him was
For AJ, he would have been up 3 years ago.
Okay, we just finished talking about how AJ probably shouldn't have Salas in Double-A. All right, so there's a difference between what AJ thinks and what the three of us would probably do. Miguel Mendez is a guy whose body really matured. He's something like he's 6'2" or 6'3". He's about 170 or 175. He needs to still put on some more weight. Pretty much at the A-ball levels, he just bullied people with a really big fastball. When he got up to Double-A, guys could hit the fastball. He needs a little bit more with his slider and changeup. They're there. He just needs more consistency. I would probably think he needs at least 4 or 5, at least 3 or 4 months, and then we can kind of get back to it. You're going to need to see something where he can get people off the fastball, like kind of to an extent, though he can get away with it more as a reliever. I know you guys are going to want to talk about him as Garrett Hawkins, a really big Canadian kid, 6'5", came back, huge fastball. Photographers love taking pictures of him. He has more interesting facial expressions when he unleashes that thing. He has a really good sweeper, but he needs something that, he can kind of throw to lefties, either a changeup or a curve, which he's been working on. And he's something that could be coming up. But to go back to Miguel Mendez, I think it's still a little early for him. But yeah, he's someone that you should definitely keep an eye on.
What if he goes out in the Cactus League and just lights it up, and everyone starts going, "Hey, there's your guy, there's your number 5," and you saw him, and all of a sudden he's throwing after Randy Vasquez in Cactus League games? Do we read into that? Do we? I know John killing right now because you're like, this should not happen, but on the off chance, because he's not going to be one of those guys who's throwing the backfield games that Joe Musgrove and Nick Pivetta are throwing. he's going to be throwing Cactus League games that we're all going to be able to see.
You sound like one of the guys I lost a bet to when CJ Abrams would make the Major League roster. He was sending me stats going, this is what he's hit against Major League pitchers. This is what he's hit against non-Major League pitchers. It's the Cactus League. Never look at the stats in the Cactus League. Come on, Derek. You know that. Come on. If you were saying that across, you'd slap me if I said that same thing.
So that's what I'm saying is, what if the groundswell of support for this guy comes up, because all of a sudden they all start getting asked about him because we all see that he's got a .34 ERA with 2 strikeouts an inning, and then we all going, okay, well, what's the deal? Will they feel pressured or compelled to keep him on the Major League roster? Give him the Kyle Hart treatment?
No.
Good.
No.
What I'm doing, I'm not stumping for this. I'm saying this is what the fans are going to be asking. So set us up for it now.
I actually won a bet with those guys too. We got to go to Ethiopian food when I was out here, so that was nice. Yeah.
Well, when we have you back on after you've been out there in March and he's lighting it up, we can bring this come back to this conversation.
I fully expect that. I mean, when I put Salas at number 4, I think Kevin Charity texted David J or something like, maybe it's time we take the keys away from Grandpa as far as making people. So I don't know.
On the line, I mean, Derek has taken me in the direction I was hoping to go, which was where does the help come in 2026? Anywhere on this roster, anywhere in the system, who do you look at as guys that could potentially be an asset in 2026? Because the fear is it's a very short list.
Probably the answer to that would be, if your wife decided that you guys need to do a major remodeling on your home and you finance a lot of it. And then the question is, where are we going to take a vacation this year? Well, we're going to take a vacation and paying off the Visa card, which we took the debt on.
This is why I do all the work myself.
Yeah, exactly. They don't have a whole lot. Some of the guys who could come up, I think there could be some help coming from the bullpen. They always have a lot of depth there. They think they have a lot of guys kind of at the A-ball level, especially at like Elsinore, that'll be attractive. So I think if they have any help coming, it's probably going to be the same way it's been the past couple of years. There'll be a trade of some prospects, and depending on how good a player is, that'll be whether he gets the Cruz, Schoolcraft, or Cash Mayfield stay. Now, one thing I think, and to AJ's credit, if he is going to trade one of those big guys, it's going to be someone for multiple years who's really good. And we can talk all about DeVries leaving. But, if they get a return of someone like a Mason Miller, yeah, you'd probably think about that. So that's not necessarily a bad thing.
So the answer is nobody.
Yeah. I don't see him. They might try to put Matt Waldron back out there again.
He's a known commodity. We've known about Matt for a long time. We love the knuckleball. If it's working, he's great. If it's not, he's probably not all that good. Yes. But it's like we know who's a guy who, man, comes out of nowhere. We're not sure about. This is the guy who comes in and freaks everybody out because he's just that good. Like who's that dude?
Derek, next Christmas there's going to be no Santa Claus coming down the chimney for you. I mean, there isn't anybody that is some unknown guy that's going to freak everybody out, that's coming out of nowhere. I think there's some guys who could probably help the team.
Victor Lizarraga?
Yeah, Lizarraga is an incredibly entertaining person to talk to. And when he's on, his pitching is a blast to watch, because what he does is, he can throw strikes with his secondary pitches. He can even land his changeup for called strikes. And then he finishes people off with a pretty precise fastball. The problem is when he doesn't land, the secondary pitches, and he has to rely on like a low 90s fastball that's pretty straight. It wasn't pretty in Double-A. So he kind of had an off season this past year. He pitched well in like 2 outings he had in El Paso, and he might do better. I always liked him a lot, but that's a lot of wish casting on Lizarraga, though, man. I hope
he's
it does
he's
happen.
a local kid too, so
He's a
gonna
local
keep
kid
our eye
too,
on him.
from Montgomery High School, and he was there for a year, and he always downplays how smart he is. He's a very intelligent pitcher when you watch him, but he's going to need to add some more velocity.
It's destined to be dealt at the trade deadline for, rotation depth, maybe a power hitting first baseman. Maybe that's a more relevant question.
Yeah.
So let me answer this then, John. Why do the Padres have so much trouble drafting power? Drafting guys who can legitimately and consistently put the ball out of the ballpark at the big league level. Jackson Merrill, yes. Other than that, this organization historically has not been great at finding guys who can get to the big leagues and hit you 30, 35 homers a year. Why?
They've changed it recently. That's a great question. And whenever you talk to Preller, or better yet, Chris Kemp, who makes AJ look normal on baseball, he's a nut. He's fun to chat with.
I like Chris a lot. Yeah,
Chris is a lot.
He'll dive into some 13-year-old in the Dominican Republic who's going to be great in 3 years.
He had one story where I asked him a couple years ago. I asked him about scouting in Venezuela, if it was dangerous. And he said, one time I had to kind of ride in a trunk for about 9 miles, but they had air holes in it, and it's not really as bad as people say it is. And he's just talking like it's a normal thing. Like, yeah. And then, but there was this really good kid I wanted to see. And so, God. But to go back to Derek's question is, when they talk about position players, what they love to do is they love to talk about how they stay up the middle. They stay with a catcher. They want a shortstop. They want a center fielder. The one kind of flaw in that, and they've tried to change that, like Cale Fountain is a guy who they spent some money on, a kid from Nebraska. The big kid who's about 6'4", 6'5", can play third and first and maybe the corner outfielders. They've just started to look for those type of guys, because I think they identified that as a flaw. Though if you talk to Preller, it's going to be, no, we always look for those guys, just hasn't been the right guy. But I think they're kind of making a bit of a change to find that type of player, and they should. That's a good thing, which they should look for.
Yeah. Fountain set the Nebraska high school state home run record by his junior year.
Like, state stolen base champion too.
Yeah, he's.
I'm not sure if he's a
tall
third
drink of water.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, he's about 225. I don't know if he can play third. He came back off a Tommy John surgery as a position player last year. He was limited just to first and DH. I think they're going to try him at third, and he'll be out there like Elsinore, so you guys can drive up and take a look at him. He can run too. He's a good athlete.
John, got anything you want to plug?
As always, man, I hope people go to Mad Friars, and if you want to pay the $5 a month and get content like this, which helps fund our trips, covers our planes, rental cars, and hotel rooms. Doesn't cover any of the food, even though Darnay likes to pick on the coffee cake at Annie's Cafe and Lake Elsinore, saying I think it looked a little dry. I think that was his comment.
Did I say that? It's funny that you say that. My memory is, whenever I go, I haven't driven through through Elsinore in a while, but when I do, I need to stop and get some. So yes. I might have said something, but in the back of my mind is I need to try that out because it does look really good.
Well, I'd go by what Derek would say is like, what makes a better story and what can make Darnay look bad at. So I will take my version, which I think would work. And I don't think Derek has a problem with
that. I never try to make Darnay look bad.
He does it on its own.
It just happens naturally.
It just happens, guys.
Well, you have been to L&J. I wrote a food piece in there that's free for everybody, so you can find out where the best places to eat at all 4 of the affiliates. So that's always a lot of fun. Yeah, we appreciate.
Why do you leave Peoria out of there?
You know that answer. I'm not Marty Caswell. I mean,
okay. Well, then let me ask you this: why did you leave the surrounding areas out of there? Scottsdale's got some great restaurants.
Scottsdale has some good ones, but if you're talking about where you have to drive, I think we went to a Mexican place that was okay in Peoria, and there's a Hawaiian barbecue place that was so. But yeah, there's some. Actually, all 4 of the affiliates have really good spots to eat at. Texas has some great barbecue in San Antonio that you can get. The brisket's amazing. Fort Wayne has some fun places to go, and Elsinore has a good place for Annie's is fun to go to, and there's a place has good beer tacos. I like too. That was in there.
I can get that in the neighborhood, John.
Yeah, got to come out one time, man.
On Scottsdale, I went to the Ends with some friends in May. It was one of the best meals I had last year.
Okay, I'll try that.
Good spot.
Definitely
Thank you, John. Appreciate it as always.
guys.
Good catching up, and hopefully do it again after your trip to Peoria.
I'll talk to you guys then. Hopefully I'll see you guys in person. So take care, man.